India was going through liberalization, privatization, large-scale infrastructure project, and being the lead consulting projects, we were thrown into all of them. We were working to win large foreign direct investments, entry strategies for clients. We were working with Indian Railways and Container Corporation of India, looking at re-engineering and long-range decision support system.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the esteemed FaceTime with Leaders, an initiative by World Development Corporation. I'm Sunny Pancholi, anchor at World Development Corporation. FaceTime with Leaders is a platform for industry titans to share their experiences, thoughts, ideas, and best practices in order to inspire one another and future leaders. We have one such corporate leader and veteran on FaceTime with Leaders with us today, Ms. Rashmi Chandra. She is a distinguished professional with a remarkable career spanning almost 3.5 decades, during which she has held leadership positions in renowned consulting firms like Ferguson Co, Deloitte, and KSA Technopak. As the founder of Intrim Consulting Network and ExtraPortions, a tech-driven community sharing platform, she has demonstrated her expertise in networking and strategic advisory. Welcome to FaceTime with Leaders, Ms. Rashmi.
Thank you, Sunny, for having me here, and it's a great pleasure to be here.
All right. So to begin with, could you let our viewers know in brief about your career journey and your transition to consulting?
Yeah. So, I would like to just step back a little to bring some context to my career. I belong to a small town called Bokaro Steel City, which is one of the earliest steel plants which was set up in Jharkhand. And they say small towns have a certain hunger. I do believe and align to that. I think I had the hunger then. I continue to have that hunger today. And, Bokaro came up on the back of tremendous work which was being done by the management for the tribals who were displaced, for the large number of employees who were coming in to set up their careers and lives and families there, for the large number of commerce which was being set up. So, apart from the blast furnaces and the thermal plants and the cooling plants and what that a steel plant requires, there were a lot of effort being made to manage the tribals which were displaced, manage the environment which was likely to get affected of that area, which was a very forested area. So we had recycling plants, cooling ponds, we had scrap melting and recycling plants, we had hospitals, temples, labor hutments, colonies being set up. And, it was very interesting as in my growing years to see this kind of how a township comes up and how the effort of management can make a difference to the lives of people. Apart from, I studied in a St. Xavier's school and imbibed a lot of missionary values. I studied along with tribals and EWS people, students. Did a lot of social work right from the beginning, which was whether it was teaching programs, feeding programs. The point being that, I feel that I was witnessing ESG in action right from my childhood, ESG and CSR right from my childhood. And, that kind of, tickled a lot of my thinking brain. And I finally came to Delhi to study in LSR and then did my management at IMT. And then, I had a choice of whether going into sales and marketing or going towards consulting. And I felt that I really wanted to understand how managements think, how decisions are taken, and work across various domains and industries. And that's why I chose consulting. And A.F. Ferguson and Company was one of the leading and most coveted consulting firms at that point of time. So I joined A.F. Ferguson and Company and spent more than a decade there. Those were heady days for India, the early 90s and early 2000s. They were heady days for India. India was going through liberalization, privatization, large-scale infrastructure project, and being the lead consulting projects, we were thrown into all of them. We were working to win large foreign direct investments, entry strategies for clients. We were working with Indian Railways and Container Corporation of India, looking at, re-engineering and long-range decision support systems. We were working with the ministries on a lot of policy changes. So, I was doing the real hard yards then, but learning significantly and being part of the change story of India. And, that's when, the technology, the internet, all that was part of the consulting experience that I had in my decade there. And then the next wave started, which was organized retail, and retail, which was largely informal, and a lot of formalization of the informal sector. And you will see the Olas and the Ubers and the retail. And that's when I moved out of Ferguson and moved to KSA Technopak, which was a retail and supply chain consulting firm. And heady days at that point of time. I was working with all the corporates were looking at retail as the sunrise industry, whether it was the Shriram Group, whether it was the Future Group, whether it was Reliance. And again, KSA Technopak was the leading retail consulting firm at that point of time. And I was working at very, very interesting mandates, looking at enabling entry into retail for senior leadership of these companies. So, having spent a few years there, after that broke off, like most professionals do, and set up a startup called Intrim Consulting Network. And that's where my journey for the startup started. Yeah.
All right. So, what inspired you to start Intrim Consulting Network and ExtraPortions, and what unique challenges did you face while establishing these ventures?
Yeah. So, having done consulting for, so many years, 13, 14 years already, at that point of time, I think we felt a deep need, my co-founder and myself, for refreshing consulting. We felt that consulting was sometimes a little hands off from really what the clients needed. And um, we wanted to refresh the consulting approach, as well as a lot of times, when you have built in a lot of experience with yourself, a lot of professionals break off, and on the confidence of the clients and relationships will follow you. And that's exactly what happened. And we set up Intrim. Intrim Consulting, we brought in a big refresher in our approach. And we had a huge confidence that came from companies like ITC, Tata Steel, Castrol signing up with us and wanting us to look at problems with fresh eyes. And what we wanted to do was essentially, really engage and co-own the problem, the ambition and charter of our clients. Not have a report which was submitted and not have a big, beautiful PowerPoint, but co-own the problem. Really go behind the the unsaid and the unwritten, and see how the changes could be brought in. And the consulting journey started in Intrim with us looking at what I call the prime model. We brought in the prime model, which was essentially whenever we engage with the client, we used our prime approach, which was essentially a set of questions called PRIM. P was the purpose of why we are being engaged. What is the real purpose? Is it profitability? It is shareholder value? Is it really re-engineering? Is it employee? And going beyond what was obvious. R was the reason why things are how they are today. And when you answer these kind of questions, a lot of softer aspects come in. The texture that you're dealing with comes into the picture, and you really are able to deliver a much significant value to the client. I was interplay of forces and functions, which in any organization, and how could they get impacted in the implementation of any of the recommendation. M was the the intermutability between external and the internal. And E was empathy for the client and its culture, environment, and its people. So when we did this kind of a approach, and we sat down with ourselves and then sat down with the clients to answer this really was not about doing the scoping of the work of terms of reference. This was going behind the line, and we loved doing it. The clients loved going through this approach, and that helped us in really focusing on what was required to be done and removing and filtering out what was not needed. We brought in something called the CE process, which was called the client empathy process. Now, clients need also, you do long range, your projects go on for a year, 2 years, and the client needs keep changing. So how do you keep pace with it? So we called something called a client empathy sheet. The CE sheet was something which before every engagement with the client, we would sit down and say, what is the client thinking today? What are the stakeholders we're engaging with thinking today? And how do we address that problem today? It isn't, and that helped us go beyond, again, the terms of reference and really delivering value and being aligned with the client throughout. So, it was good to be able to bring those kind of creativity. And that's what inspired us to start Intrim. Challenges बहुत थे, lot of challenges which were there. First challenge was we were not a brand, we were a garage operation. And would clients repose their faith in us? Would clients give us the confidence? And we said, let us give ourselves a year to see whether they would. And we had to have engagement models, which are not the standard consulting models of engagement. So what we did was we started doing small pilots, small diagnostics, whether that was Tata Steel, whether it was ITC, to show what was the possibilities. And we would present that. We would just ask them to give us 4 hours of their time. That's it. And if they, and we had obviously relationship with them that allowed us to do that. But when they saw what we were presenting to them, that's when they said, okay, there's a possibility of a scaled up model of this. So, doing that and going through the hurdle of spending a lot of time doing those diagnostics and convincing ourselves, and we had confidence in ourselves, but getting clients to repose their confidence in us was the number one challenge. The second was getting talent. You again had talent that you needed to do these projects, and you had to engage with them and attract them through through the power of the conviction that you brought to your consulting approach. There were challenges, but it was interesting. We still feel like a startup, but yes, we've spent more than 2 decades doing it, and that's proof of pudding there that we have worked across one of the best clients, startups, small, medium, large number of international clients, cross-border investments. So, yeah, challenges of different kinds continue today, but challenges are that then were different. ExtraPortions is my recent baby. So ExtraPortions basically has emerged from a deep belief in human ingenuity and community sharing. And it came from a place also of my deep agony over waste, which was taking place. Essentially earlier I used to travel, and used to see a lot of drivers sitting idle. And you say they actually do productive work for 2 to 3 hours in a day. But for 7 to 8 hours, they are sitting idle. And what are they doing? They're playing cards, and I thought, how do you monetize and potentialize the free time? And therefore, my thought was working along with some tech companies to see, is there a model by which, and with some not-for-profits, by which we could, through that pipeline, through an app, send in skill, education, other earning opportunities for the idle time. However, I couldn't really give it a particular shape. You start with some ideas. So I pivoted at that point of time. And what was the second waste, which happens the largest in the system, which is food. And, of course, I mean, a lot of us know that a lot of food is wasted. But the magnitude of that is that 1/3 of the food that we produce today is wasted. It will require whole of China and 25% of the fresh water that is there in the world to produce the food that we waste. And problem is food waste is very fragmented. We overcook at homes, retailers overstock, restaurants overcook, and of course, down the value chain. So I wanted to attack a small portion of this big problem. And the small portion was food waste at home. Now, there were two sweet spotting that came to which inspired me. One was, how do you stop the food waste, and how do you ensure that the surplus food which is there is not wasted but is shared? And the other was the inherent neighborhood sharing habits that we have as communities that we have. So ExtraPortions was born. It's basically a neighborhood sharing platform for surplus food. It's a technology-enabled web app, technology-enabled app, which allows people to offer and allows people to book food. It's a free surplus food sharing app. Uh, I piloted this during second wave of COVID. Second wave of COVID actually was a very tough time. A lot of homes needed home food. A lot of because people were falling sick and there was very difficult times on food front. So I said, okay, let me pilot it at this point of time because there was a crying need for it. We had hundreds of volunteers. You won't believe it, Sunny. Hundreds of volunteers joining up, willing to cook for another home. And that's what happened for, we had hundreds of volunteers cooking for homes. We had Swiggy Genie giving us free delivery. We had Krishi Grass supplying vegetables. And that's how the whole system started. It was a very heartening, a very validating process that one went through. And that's what Extra Portions is, basically, where you share what you have extra with other people. That's Extra Portions. But it's a startup, it's a challenge. There are significant challenge. Logistics challenge is one of the biggest one in that, and creating viability around this model. Yeah, I'm still struggling with it.
That sounds incredible, really. Wow. All right. So, what are some of your biggest professional contributions and accomplishments? Could you share with our viewers today?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. When you've spent 30 years, more than 30 years consulting, there are a lot of, achievements that you have, small, big, where you have enabled change, where you impacted people, impacted organizations. Few of my favorites are some of the recent work, one of the recent work that I did for National Foundation of Corporate Governance and CII, which was titled Women Leadership, Impact on Corporate Governance and Business Sustainability. And it was looked at, it was a cross-national study of looking at, what impedes women leadership and their voice on the table. And it was a very interesting knowledge paper that we had developed. It is up there on NFCC website as one of the research papers. Very proud of it. Very close to my heart also. Also, I think the work that I've done on policy with a lot of governments, state governments, a lot of ministries, where you've influenced policies, whether it was on with food processing, whether it was APIDA, whether it was on privatization of airports, long-range decision support system for Indian Railways. These were arduous projects, but with a huge impact and huge multipliers. Again, very happy to have had a chance to contribute on those policies. Also, I think you feel accomplished. I feel that your feeling of accomplishment comes from what is the degree of influence you have had on systems and people, And I feel that the work that I have done across various organizations, um, uh, and where you have influenced leadership and management to think in a particular different way, to look at beyond the obvious, to change some of the perspective, for them to change gears and to do old things in new ways or new things in old ways, new markets. And when you work with them and you create that internal buy-in, whether it was with Tata Steel, whether it was with ITC and looking at new KPIs for their FMCG business, which they had just entered, or Tata Steel, which was looking at, how do you create intellectual control over their retail, or whether it was a Castrol, which was looking at how do you create a stronger connect with the small garage operations, or when it was Mahindra's, when we were looking at the entire diversification strategies. These were very challenging but very interesting and accomplished feeling projects. Yeah. So I feel that that's a source of great accomplishment. I think the work that I'm doing for not-for-profits, I think that has recently been a very, very personally satisfying when I'm working in rural India with looking at economic resilience for the poor, as an advisor, and looking at women entrepreneurship in Northeast India, or looking at as a board member on IPartners, the contribution that I make on rescuing of women and children from sex trade, these are very, very heartening involvements that I have, personally satisfying. So I think it's a plethora of things. And I would say, last but not the least, that when you have a lot of talent that you've attracted, you feel very responsible for them. And when they have gone on to grow personally so much, and to again, many of them might not be with us anymore, but they're doing so well outside. And I feel a great sense of joy when I see them flourishing like that. So I would say this is a bouquet of what I feel accomplished about.
Rightly said, Ms. Rashmi. So building on to that, could you shed some light on the dignity model of women entrepreneurship and the IEV model of women leadership that highlight your contributions in the field of ESG?
Yeah, my favorites. So dignity model is basically, see, entrepreneurship, and especially rural entrepreneurship, is very close to my heart. I've spent a lot of time in rural India and rural hinterland, largely coming on the back of the projects that we were doing for rural facing companies, which had a lot of brands which were going on to the rural India. And but saw the rural hinterland very close up, saw the dichotomies that existed close up, and saw entrepreneurship as a big opportunity which existed there. I have done work with companies like GSK, like Ruchi Soya, NABARD, and uh, so essentially, dignity model. One of the problems with entrepreneurship is that is of sustainability and viability, and many of them are unable to do so. So, dignity model is essentially looking at a viability model for rural entrepreneurship, and especially women entrepreneurship. So, dignity is, of course, stands for what you aspire to get out of when you get economic empowerment for women who are moving from zero earning to zero to one, as I call it. And uh, dignity basically is a acronym for a framework, which is DIGNIT. D stands for the number of beneficiaries, the number of people you're impacting through your model. I stands for investment, and capital inadequacy is one of the biggest problems of scale and sustainability in rural entrepreneurship. So there is, I addresses that. G is talking about the governance structure, which enables you to create a long-term governance structure on top of the rural entrepreneurial cohort that you have built. N stand for nurturance. These entrepreneurs are novice entrepreneurs. They need a lot of handholding and nurturance. So how do you create a enabling nurturance model? And there is a lot of detail, so I won't go into that right now. And I again stands for basically, T stands for transformational impact that you've had on the women. So when you are creating economic empowerment, you're also enabling a significant amount of agency building, change in power equity at home, social mobility, physical mobility. So the entire transformative effect on the ecosystem captures T. And why is the yield that is generated, or the benefit that is generated for the organizations which are enabling entrepreneurship. So that's the dignity model. And IEV model, while dignity talks about rural entrepreneurship, IEV model talks about corporate leadership. And we are talking about the C-suite and the board level leadership. So, we do know, and research has shown that, and we now even have policy supporting it, that when you have women in leadership, they bring in a more inclusive workplace. They contribute significantly to the governance index of that company. They contribute significantly to the diversity in the thinking. And across the world, there is significant advocacy going on along these lines, which is to increase participation of women in leadership. SDG 5 talks about equal opportunity in leadership across political, economic, and public life for women. However, one of the biggest problem is what we call the leaking pipeline, which, as you progress up the levels, the number of women keep falling off the ladder because of various reasons. And so how do you, IEV model basically talks about inclusion, equity, and voice. And when you, not only do you need inclusion and to be called on the table, you need equal number of seats on the table. And when we say equal, it means equitable at least. And voice is when you at least have a share in the voice and decisions that are taking place. So IV model is basically talking about women leadership at the corporate level. So, both these, if you look at it, touches upon ESG.
All right. So as an ESG and corporate governance expert, Ms. Rashmi, what values do you bring to the table?
When I feel that having spent so much time working across industries, working across sectors, across domains, helping companies draft their strategies, draft and think about and craft their vision, mission statements, looking at their entire distribution architecture, and you take it's ingrained in you, this second thinking of how do you reframe opportunity and risks simultaneously for every recommendation that you make. Your ability to join dots which nobody else is seeing and to read between the lines is an acute skill that one has acquired over these number of years of experience. And that's the kind of feedback that I get about, that you bring the kind of innovative thinking, the out of box thinking. And that's the kind of thinking which unearths opportunities on ESG side and which reframes risks and reprioritizes and helps reprioritize risk, which is all that is required for better governance in a company. And I do feel that, uh, that in ESG, you need a certain judgment, an ability to do a smart judgment on what is being brought to you to take decisions on. And that's what I have done along with senior leadership and managements all this while. So as an ESG consultant, I also, I mean, I do feel that, I feel very ready to add my perspective and thought process to any management as an independent director today. Also, I feel that there is no one size fit all in ESG. Having worked with, I mean, again, working along with so many kind of different cultures and DNA of different organization, I'll bring an analogy from football. There are organizations which are from football, which is, organizations which are like the forwards. Forwards are deeply entrenched in ESG. They would do cutting edge work in ESG. They believe that cutting edge work in ESG will help them build value for the future. And you will see that the top scoring companies on ESG scores would lie here. Then you have the center hubs. They are purpose driven. They have few flagship favorite projects which improves their image in on the ESG front, and they're very strong in compliance. And then you have the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks are basically very compliance driven. Their entire approach to ESG is compliance. And then you have the goalkeepers who have a very crisis management approach on ESG. And when you're working with different organizations, depending on whether you're working with a forward or you are a director in a forward company or a quarterback or a center, you have to calibrate and collaborate accordingly. It's no one size fits all. You have to bring the perspective which is genuinely applicable and workable for that kind of a company. So I feel that understanding, I feel I am able to bring, to the thinking and to the table today.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing such amazing insights into different subjects. All right. So moving forward, let's discuss technology and its impact on your professional landscape. So what are some changes you expect to see in your field with the advent of IoT, AI, ML, blockchain, big data, digital twins, cloud, and Web 3.0?
Yeah, and it's only going to increase. Yeah. So I think we are going to be high speeding on these in terms of information, communication, and interlinking of value chain as far as ESG is concerned. So this will enable very intuitive and very decision-making dashboards emerging for senior leadership to be able to take decisions and to think about. We will see a significant spotlight on transparency and governance as a result of it. Information is no longer going to be, have no equity. It's going to be out there for everybody to see. And with increased transparency will become increased need of managing the risks which are there with respect to, I mean, I would say one of the big risks which might emerge is social media governance, which is free for all today. And so I feel that there'll be increased need and of speed. There'll be increased speed, increased agility, better decision, faster decisions. However, what will also come in is governance of the technology itself, because we know that there are a lot of issues and a lot of questions which are coming up on the use of this technology and impact and its negative impacts. So there will be a strong governance, and we have to keep pace with that. What is happening on technology governance by itself? There will be increased democratization of technology, and it will no longer, and we will see it getting adopted and getting used significantly across all across the public. And I feel that we will see more civil society involvement as a result of this. So technology is going to bring some changes with respect to, on the societal governance and public aspects also, apart from how it will enable and better decisions and more agility within firms.
Great. So this brings us to the last question of the session, and here it is. We are building a community of industry magnates. The move is meant for cross-pollination of knowledge and building a knowledge-sharing community of corporate giants and industry experts. So what are your thoughts about these initiatives taken by Mr. Zishan Pathan, Mr. Heval Mehta, and the team of World Development Corporation?
Today, we have hyper specialization. However, where we have hyper specialized people, and all of us. And however, what is also required is a worldview and a much larger perspective along with this. And I think this kind of a platform really is a sweet spot between that. It enables networking and enables for your perspective to get wider and a worldview to come in, because you're able to have access to such brilliant minds on this platforms. You might be sitting in your own silo, but are able to now be able to exposed and get a very, very interesting perspective across various topics and domains. So I feel it's a brilliant and remarkable initiative on Zishan's and Heval's side.
Great. All right. It was fantastic conversing with you, Ms. Rashmi, and I'm confident that your insights will inspire future leaders. Thank you for joining us today. Wish you the best for your future endeavors. Moreover, trust that this initiative by Directors Institute has unquestionably expanded the participants' understanding and enriched their minds.
Thank you. Yes, certainly. Thank you for having me here. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you.